Some of my friends call me a pessimist, but I don't see it that way. It's just that my experiences have taught a lot. And for me, whenever something great happens, headaches are never far behind. A few years ago, I was working as a delivery driver for a carpet company, and I was hired with the assurance of an 8 to 5 shift. But a few times per month, one of our store managers would decide to be greedy, and my delivery partner and I would end up working late. Personally, I didn't care about the overtime pay. I wanted more control over my schedule. What was the point of having extra cash if it meant missing out on life? And I should have suspected trouble when bonus checks were handed out that Friday. That usually only happened around holidays, but I was too preoccupied with how I'd spend the extra money to notice that I was being set up. Later that Friday night, my manager called to say he was changing our schedule for the next day. We had too many deliveries and he already knew we wouldn't be finished by 5 p.m. My partner, who had higher seniority, had already chosen the earlier shift, leaving me stuck working until 9 at night. I told my boss that the time change would make me miss my friend's birthday dinner. In response, he offered me an extra $40. Yippee. Once again, my schedule was changed last minute, and I now had to make my delivery solo. Those were the headaches I should have been expecting, but things were about to get even worse. Saturday began sunny and mild. As soon as I started preparing for work, dark clouds rolled in. Though rain wasn't forecasted, it appeared a downpour could start any moment as I drove down the highway. Luckily, I managed to get to work and load my truck before the sky opened up. 8 deliveries might not seem much, but fitting them into a 6-hour shift was challenging, so I ate before leaving home to avoid any delays. I completed 6 drop-offs without issue and made some decent tips. With one customer rescheduling, I only had one more stop before I could meet up with my friends. Following my manager's directions, I took the exit for Kennedy Way, and it was about another 25 minutes to the customer's driveway. However, after 10 minutes, I was impeded by emergency crews cleaning debris from a downed tree. An officer informed me it would be at least another hour, just enough to cancel out the time I had saved from the earlier rescheduling. So with the radio out of order, I passed the time by reading random restaurant menus from around the truck. In between my boredom and the rain's rhythmic tapping, I dozed off. When I woke up, about 30 minutes had passed, but the rain had stopped, the tree was cleared, and the emergency crews were gone. With the road now open, it was time to resume my route. Roughly 20 minutes later, and hopefully I'd be heading home. But that's where things got funky. I was surprised to find myself approaching the intersection. The directions hadn't mentioned any traffic lights between the highway and the customer's driveway. Usually they'd include something like that. As I waited for the light to turn green, I glanced up at the street signs. I was at the intersection of Drayton and Bishop. Somehow I was no longer on Kennedy, and I had no idea where I was. There was a gas station nearby, so I decided to walk into the small shop to figure out where I went off course. When I told the cashier my destination, I was stunned to learn I still had another 45 minutes to go. What? I was already on Kennedy Way, I protested, and I didn't drive more than another 10 minutes. The cashier calmly and kindly repeated himself and mentioned that he had family near my destination and was quite familiar with the area. He let me use the phone to call my manager, but of course no one answered. Swallowing my frustration, I stepped back outside into the night air. With new directions in hand, I decided the best thing to do was make the final drop-off. By the time I reached the last customer's house, it was already 9 o'clock. She was a little old lady who continuously complained about how late I was. She said I had kept her waiting for hours, and that if I thought I was getting a tip, I must be crazy. I quickly dropped her items on the porch, wished her a good evening, and climbed back in my truck. Heavy rain began again early Sunday morning. I canceled my plans to go grocery shopping and spent the day flipping through channels. While watching part of a war documentary I stumbled across, my friend Lisa called. Guess what, she said. What? I'm just getting home from last night. Wasn't that just great? Instead of enjoying a night out on the town, I had gotten lost in the rain, and now my friends were calling to rub it in. I tried to hide my envy. That's great. Where'd you guys go? Nowhere. There was a brief silence. Confused, I asked Lisa to explain. What followed was an outrageous story. My friends had made reservations at a fancy restaurant an hour away from our neighborhood. The birthday honoree's cousin had taken the train into town and booked a room at a nearby hotel. Lisa and our 3 other friends had arrived at the hotel early to enjoy the swimming pool before dinner, and after getting dressed, they went down to the lobby to wait for their taxis. And that's when they took the longest elevator ride any of them had ever experienced. The emergency button was also inoperative, leaving them trapped for 2 hours before anyone even knew they were stuck. And due to the number of emergency crews dealing with fallen trees, it took nearly 4 more hours to free them. When I hung up, I had a new perspective on my previous day, and it gave me a sobering reminder that things could always be worse. By the end of my shift, I was soaked, had been berated by an old lady, and I had to settle for chicken nuggets for dinner. But I'd take all of that over being stuck in that elevator, especially after the situation reached a point where my friends could no longer hold it in.